up and sit down.
Hey people, it's Andy here from Bigmeks Workshop Painting Studio, and it's an Orukk Megaboss today. This is the AOS model from GW, and it is an absolute belter. Huge dude, lots of detail, loads of interesting stuff to play around with, and yeah. So as you can see, sub-assembly as always, so I can get out the inside parts. And we're going to get a real crack on. I'm going to make a start on painting the axe. So I'm doing the axe a little bit different. I was initially going to paint it up as a non-metallic, but that went sideways as I couldn't get it looking the way I wanted it. So after a bit of a rethink, I went for a sort of a stippling effect using a non-metallic as a base. So we've got loads of interesting highlights going on. The first quarter of an hour is probably just the axe. I spent an inordinate amount of time painting this thing. But I actually really enjoyed playing around with some of the different techniques. So enough waffle about that. As you can see, making a grey base over the black prime. That's petroleum grey. These are largely scale 75 colours. But we're getting a nice even layer of the greys. So now we're using brown grey as sort of a highlight for the non-metallic. As I said, the non-metallic did not go to plan. I just couldn't get it right. Something I'm going to have to work on a little bit more. But I'm getting the mechanics of it down. So centered towards the highlight areas is rainy grey. Really thin down, as you can see. With non-metallic painting techniques, you need to have your paint super thin. I'm working the rainy grey towards all the extreme edges as well. So you're getting that kind of a nice, vibrant highlight between the darker areas. So now it is Miskatonic grey. Slightly lighter colour, and we're using that to just sort of feather some of the colours together, making some of that highlight areas extra bright, really focusing towards the centre points, and generally bringing those points up quite vibrantly. Now, as you guys know, I'm not an expert at non-metallic by any stretch. I've made a couple of attempts, so that's why I give it a go. It's definitely worth giving it a try, but don't get disheartened if things go a little bit wrong with the colours. It's quite a difficult technique to get right. So as you can see, I'm using some of the petroleum grey just to feather it down a bit, just to blend those colours together, and get also some of the brown grey, just to take the blends, just to soften the blends. And I've used some Miskatonic grey and some of the petroleum grey to add some flaws in the axe. As you can see, it's just to bring those highlights up again. Really vibrant, and interestingly, it looks a lot better on camera than it did in person. Looking at it now, it came up quite nicely. The non-metallic colours on the camera, didn't really like it when I was painting it. Looks a lot more interesting, although still not quite non-metallic. It does look a lot closer to the image that I was after. This is where I decided to change tack. And I'm using Arbuckle's brown, and this is going to go all over the body of the axe. I'm not sure what the actual main part of the axe is called, but not the what we're going to be focused on the body rather than the edge. As what we're going to do now is we're going to start bringing up some real nice highlights using a stippling brush, or in this case just a knackered one. For this we're using orange leather. We're going to start adding some texture, some depth, some real life to the axe now. It's going to look really battered and worn. and generally kind of orky. So once we've got some of the orange leather, but now we're using coke and copper. As you can see, we're leaving some of the darker colour showing through from all of it. We're bringing these layers up nice and gentle. You want to leave some of the darker colours showing through in all the areas, so it's so you get some real nice depth to it. Once we've gone down with the coke and copper, this is now Orukk, and we're just going to start using a particularly narrow brush, old brush what we've got. This was a 0, was being used and killed so many times it's basically a stippling brush anyway. As you can see, we're just building up those highlights around the edges. Also taking it onto the blade itself now. As you can see, just starting to add a bit of damage to the blade. This is an Orc's weapon, so probably not going to be particularly known for keeping it clean. He might occasionally kick a goblin to do it, but more than that, it's just a case of just bringing those highlights up real sharp, real nice, but using the stippling technique just to get it to really show off. So I've got a little bit over the top in there, and now it's a case of bringing some of the greys, some of the metalworks back into the colour. So I'm using a straight brush now, and this is going to be stippling along the edges of the blade, making it look a lot sharper using a Miskatonic grey again. As you can see, just starting to bring some of that colour coming, some of that metal sort of colour coming through. As you can see, some of the non-metallic metal colours can still be seen, which is kind of a point of doing the stippling. You want to see the colours underneath. And we're going to be adding some black metal now to actually paint the blade in itself. We're using a nice dark one, as it will stand out quite well against these nice vibrant colours of the rust. So this is a scale 75 paint rather than the layer one. It's not quite as dark, but it's a good start point. And as you can see, we're just feathering the edge of the blade, also some of the points and the areas where the blade would be a little bit more worn, just add a bit more detail into it. Also along the section between the blade and the body of the axe. And now, so the heavy metal's going all over the teeth on the axe, and also onto the haft of the blade, and that is brown leather. Now, as you can see, there's a kind of a blue sort of rusted oxidization look on the axe head itself, and that is Caribbean blue, which has been thinned down really to about half the consistency of a wash, and it's just being placed around all the areas where any grime would gather, so you get a real interesting look to it. So onto the strapping. So as I said, I've got a brown leather base, and now I've mixed some orange leather into the brown leather. I'm going to start bringing those colours up ever so nicely. This is so well detailed, even individual pieces of the wrapping are really nicely sculpted as well. So I took a lot of time getting this axe right, so I did it real slow. Obviously took a matter of a couple of days to get this axe out. I was happy with it. Again, added some more orange leather, and as you can see, it's a little bit lighter now, just starting to focus towards any of the areas what's going to be capturing the light. I'm already imagining where the light would be hitting the handle of the axe. A little bit of sandalwood now, just going in there. Still staying with the same mix, just adding the sandalwood into it. It's just going to start allowing me to pick out those individual strands of leather, also on the edges. Really bring that axe to life. So this is just pretty much pure sandalwood at this point, and I'm just focusing on those most prominent of edges now. And as you can see, they're quite vibrant, quite stark. So once we've got the edges nice and vibrant. We're going to go over the top of the entire thing, all over the leather work, with a bit of Agrax Earthshade. And that's just going to tone some of that brighter colour together. It's going to add some nice depth to any of the recesses as well. So for the Agrax Earthshade is a real workhorse kind of colour. As you can see, it's just going to bring those all those different shades together, just make them look a lot more interesting. So after a bit of thought about what colour I was going to go for the actual haft itself, after the Agrax has dried, it's just a time to just gently go back over the points of the leather, those most vibrant highlights with a bit of Orukk. It's kind of a yellowy tan colour, just to pick them out a little bit, so they're not totally muted by the Agrax Earthshade. But I didn't go with the brightest of colours of the highlights, just to soften it up a bit. The haft itself, I went with Orukk as the base. Now this is a kind of a birch kind of colour. I decided I wanted a lighter coloured wood, as the armour on the Orc is going to be quite dark. So just to set off against that dark colour for the armour itself. Sycorax bronze was used on the ring at the bottom of the haft, just to add a little bit of shine to the bottom of it. So now I'm adding some birch into the Orukk, and this is going to be the first highlight. As you can see, it's a nice sort of similar sort of colour to the cocktail stick I'm using. You're going to get a real nice light piece of wood. It's just something a little bit different, because a lot of times you see wood like this quite dark, so the lighter wood's a little bit more unusual. Again, I've added some more birch to the Orukk, and we're going to get a nice light white coloured wood. So it's now a little bit of birch now, just to finish up these highlights, get them nice and vibrant against the light wood. We're going to be toning this together again with some washers. It's just a case of getting these high points quite interesting as we start adding some shading into it. So now I've gone to a black background to make life a little bit easier for you guys to see. And what we've done is got a mix of Regal Fresh shade and a Phonian camo shade. This is going to stain the wood itself, really make it look a little bit more interesting using the two colours. It looks a lot more worn, a bit more sweat stained. As you can see, it's I'm focusing towards the edges of the strapping, also going onto the strapping as well as inside the edge. It's just going to add a little bit more colour onto it, where any staining would naturally occur. And now we're painting a big guy himself. Yeah, this is a big dude, as you can imagine. But there's surprisingly little skin on him. So for the Orc himself, start off with Warg Flesh by GW. Can't go wrong with Warg Flesh. Really nice colour for an Orc. And I wanted to keep him more traditionally orky rather than using the pinks sort of highlights. So for his tongue, I've got a Lendil Violet, which is a nice bright purple. I wanted his tongue just to stand out nicely. Now, to be fair, I should have left his head separate from the face separate from the head, as that would have allowed me easier access to the inside. But you know, hindsight. Yeah. And the inside of the mouth is going to be a Mayhem Red, which is a nice dark red, something similar to Corn Red. I'm also taking that onto the inside of the lips as well. So at this stage, he looks a bit like he's got some kind of weird clown lipstick on, but that's going to get sorted out as we progress. So Rift Green. So something along the lines of Caliban. As you can see, I'm painting it into the recesses, just sort of a bit of depth to the model. It's also going all over the, it's going to go all over the arms, the hands, any other features like that, just to bring some depth to it. So back onto the arm hand, the axe hand, and we're going to start doing some highlights now. And this is Warg Flesh with the Rift Green. Again, I say highlights for sort of lighter dark shades. At this stage, we're just painting in some soft, darker areas using the slightly lighter version of the shader. So back to the Warg Flesh, and we are starting to highlight some of the features itself, bringing that, leaving some of the dark showing through, but also bringing the green onto the lip areas, so it's going to start to blend the red and the pink together a little bit. So I've added some Sherwood green into the Warg Flesh, and this is where we start getting highlights in, really picking out those nice vibrant areas. And just take your time with this. There's a lot of detail on the model. You can paint, there's wrinkles in his fingers, some really interesting features on this model. So I spent a fair while getting the skin right, and I really enjoyed the process of getting this model to look interesting. As you can see, you've got some weird, some interesting colour contrast now. We've got this sort of a bluey green and the yellowy greens mixing together, and we've added some Harvester Flesh into the green, just to lighten it up a little bit. I didn't want to go too far through the pinks, but I did want a little bit of rich colour in there, just to brighten the green up a bit, and it's really going to help add in some extra texture to it. So this is BL Time Green now. It uses a super thin wash. It's very much a recess wash. I'm focusing on the recesses. Although with it being so thin, you can go over flatter areas as well, as it'll just allow the colour to tone together. It'll assist with your blending. We've added some more Harvester Flesh in there, and some more of the Sherwood Green, and we're just starting to pick out the details now. As you can see, getting some of them highlights like across the brow and across his tops of his ears and around his mouth, make them really stand out. And get the colours on the inside of the lip, just to sort of blend in a little bit, so it looks a lot less like lipstick, which is now being done in Brain Eater Azure. As you can see, I've already gone over the outside of the lip with the Brain Eater, and I'm also going across any veins, what have you, around. This is I'm really just focusing on trying to get those colours quite interesting and sort of subtle. Coke Copper is for the nails and also the teeth. One of them, again, quite vibrant. Really make the dark colours really stand out nicely against the dark colours. And we're just going to start layering some of this yellowy cream together. And then we're going to add some Mahovy White to it. So this is Add a Wash. It's Agrax Earthshade. Adding the Mahovy White to the Coke and Copper just to make those teeth look a bit more interesting. And we're going to start using the narrow brush and painting the highlights up in lines, so you get sort of a bit of a texture. So some more Mahovy White now. As you can see, the teeth are starting to take shape. Again, if you follow the same lines, they'll build up a kind of a texture without having to necessarily paint it in deliberately. So you get that sort of striped effect, what you see without as much effort. So onto the leather. He's got a little bit of leather knocking around. Painted the underside of his legs, and obviously he's got wrappings around his arms. That was based in a mixture of black leather and brown leather, and I've now added some more brown leather to it, and you're going to using that for the first highlight. It's just going to be nicely much the same way as we've done on the straps of the wrappings of the axe. We're doing much the same thing, it's just on a larger area. Using a larger brush because you've got some more space to play with. It's often easier to do so because you get the same on larger areas. You get a decent paint finish, but it takes less time. So now I've added some coke and copper, and starting to pick out the details with the coke and copper. And this is just really going to pick out any of the flaws or wrinkles in the armour wrapping. So this is Reetland Flesh Shade at this point. Adding a nice red brown coloured wash to the mixture. It's just going to add a bit more life to the browns, but also make sure that they look suitably different from the wrappings on the arm on the axe. As I decided to have these as a subtly different leather. After the Reetland's gone down, I'm just going to tone it down a little bit because it's a little bit bright with Agrax, and that's just going to just bring the colours together a little bit and allow them to just flatten off a little bit and look a lot more interesting. So the armour is Huldra Blue as a base. Now, I wasn't sure what to do with the armour, but I decided to go with a really, really dark blue colour, and then add some glyphs at the end just to brighten them up. And as you can see, it's a very dark midnight blue colour. I've done the same thing on the some of the armour plates as I have with the axe, so they've done it exactly the same way. And what I'm doing is I've added some Cantabric Blue to the Huldra Blue, and this is just going to be done starting from the. I'm going to be starting from the centre of each of the panels, as there's a lot of dents and flaws in the armour. So and that's going to be brought up to the edges, which there are numerous of because of the way the armour's been designed. So this isn't a smooth armour surface. This is quite quite a lumpy one. There's a lot of interesting details and interesting textures, so you can really go to some really interesting painting styles. So I've added some more Cantabric Blue. As you can see, this is just bringing those highlights together. We're leaving loads of a dark surface and bringing those nice high points together. And what we're going to do is just keep on layering up with these vibrant edges and ridges using the same colours and making those edges a little bit more vibrant. So I've added some Mediterranean blue now, and as you can see I'm using a narrow brush now and doing much the same thing as what I did before, just on a narrow frontage, and getting those armour plates to a point where we can start taking them back down again using the washers. So this is GW's Drakenhof Nightshade. It's getting it's been thinned down quite heavily, and we're just layering it all over the armour. And this is just going to tie the highlights together, really darken the recesses, and add some soften the blending work wherever possible. So it took me a couple of layers to get the way the armour to look the way I wanted it to, and what we're getting is a really nice, interesting dark blue with quite vibrant highlights. So now it's back onto the Mediterranean blue again, just to pick out those highest areas and just to brighten it up. So what we're doing, I did decide to go a little bit higher. I've added some Hero Blue to the Mediterranean Blue, and what that's doing is just really focusing the eyes to the most extreme areas where the panels have been belted, or the most obvious high points. I'm also throwing some brighter colour here and there, places where the where damage would hit, just to make it look a little bit more interesting. So we've got a massive sort of dragon head thing. I like the one on the artwork, but I decided to do mine a little bit different. So this is Xandri Dust as a start. A couple of layers of Xandri Dust, and you get a nice base coat. And now I've added some Go4, and I've got some Go4 brown. I'm going to paint in some depth. It's something I've been playing around with a little bit recently, painting shades in rather than using washes. It gives you different effects. It gives you, as you've got more choice of colour with the shade painting, as washes are often predetermined. So it's pretty. I've gone over the top a little bit with the Go4. I think I got a little bit overzealous, but now I've added some Xandri Dust into the Go4 now, and we're starting to pick out the highlights. And this is going to start bringing the colours back to sort of natural bone colour. So after the Xandri Dust, I've added some more Xandri Dust, and this is very close to pure Xandri at this stage, and we're just feathering that colour all around the obvious detail work, leaving some of the darker shades through, and just picking out some of that nice highlight details. So now I've added some Karak Stone, and this is doing much the same as before. We're leaving some of that darker colour showing through again, and showing up, picking out the detail wherever possible. So continuing with the similar mixtures, we're using pretty much pure Karak Stone at this stage, and this is just going to start focusing those highlights again. Apologies for the dog if you can hear in the background. Yeah, there you go. She's my dog, and dogs do what dogs do. So anyway, back onto the skull. As you can see, the details are starting to become more prominent, and we're just adding a touch more, touch of Ubshabti into the mixture. As you can see, it's just starting to bring those colours to a nice high point, using these steadily lighter colours, really starting to bring that bone to a quite nice, vibrant colour. Really thin down Agrax now, and this is going all over the skull. There's a lot of detail onto it, especially on the underside. The top's quite flat, so it's got some detail carved in, but you don't really need to go, and there's not a lot of point in washing the entirety of the skull, although I still did anyway, but because it was so thin, it's not going to pull. Back to the Ubshabti bone. and as you can see, it's really starting to come together as a natural skull. Now, to be fair, I could have done something a little bit more interesting on the skull rather than just a classic bone, but I wanted to keep it fairly simple. And now we're adding some screaming skull and some ivory. Now we're adding some screaming skull and some ivory together, and just to finalise those highlights, and you're going to get a real vibrant light bone colour. There you have it, guys. That's an Orukk Megaboss. Really enjoyed painting this one. Spent an inordinate amount of time on the axe, but it's definitely worth doing. Really quite pleased with how the axe came out. A lot of fun painting this model. It's a great fig, and even if you're not an Orukk player, I definitely recommend picking one up just to have a play. There's a lot of nice big flat panels, so you can add some glyphs, which came out surprisingly well. Not really done a lot of freehand in a long time. I did do a video about freehand a long time ago, and I'm going to try and get some more done in the near future, hopefully. But I'm going to have to practice on my artwork for that one. Yeah, the beauty of Orukks is that they tend to graffiti up their armour a lot, so adding the glyphs and such really do add to the style. Anyway, guys, thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you learned something from it, and catch us again in the near future. If you'd like to watch more of this sort of stuff, please subscribe. Every little helps, as they say. Also, check us out on Patreon and Instagram. We've got a whole bunch of social media which is slowly starting to figure out how to use properly, and we would love to see you there. Take care, guys, and see you in the next one. Bye-bye. Want to help support the channel and get cheap model and hobby supplies? Click the Element Games affiliate link in the description for 15 to 25% off. Use the promo code BIG223 on the checkout to earn double crystals. Crystals equals cash in your Element Games account that can be spent on your next purchase, so everybody wins.